question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, the problem with Mr Little's bill is, firstly, it would have New Zealand homes insulated at a far slower rate than the government's policy. Secondly, that it lacks the details and does not match up to the exaggerated rhetoric that we've just heard from Mr Little. And thirdly, its impractical provisions will not work in practice. The bill is a poor substitute for the robust and practical measures this government is taking to make our homes in New Zealand warmer, drier and safer. Now, Mr Speaker, there is no disagreement in this Parliament that making our homes warmer and drier provides substantive benefits for children's health, for reducing days lost at school, for workers being able to stay at home, and savings in families' energy bills. It is these very reasons that the government has had such an active program addressing insulation in homes. Mr Little and Labor are Johnny-come-lately on this issue when you look at the record. We insulated 30,000 state homes in our first 2 years. In our first budget, we announced a program, Warm Up New Zealand, to insulate 290,000 homes. The bill we currently have in its final stages would insulate another 180,000 houses. That is 500,000. That 500,000 compares with 50,000 under the last 9 years of the government. It is absolutely true that this government has done 10 times more in respect of getting homes insulated. Now, this debate is over the detail, and I welcome the opportunity to engage and expose the flaws of this bill. The first irony in this bill is that for all the rhetoric of caring more about healthy homes, it will take 4 years longer than the government's approach to getting insulated homes upgraded. Let's optimistically assume this bill would be passed through the House by the end of the year. Clause 6 specifically says that the bill would take 12 months to come into legal effect. The later clause says that MB beyond that point would have a further 6 months to set the standard. That means the very first home to get insulated under this bill would be July 2018, and the last home to get insulated would not be until July 2023. That compares, read the bill, read your own bill, because the government's approach provides that social housing must be insulated by the 1st of July this year, and all homes that are rented by the 1st of July 2019.
Order.
Now, even if you take into account the provision in this bill to require newly tenanted homes to be insulated, that will provide about 30,000 per year. So let's take the numbers. On the 1st of July 2019, this bill would only have 30,000 homes insulated, nationals 180,000. Those that are supporting this bill are actually saying they would have 150,000 homes that are currently uninsulated, still uninsulated by 1st of July 2019. And then we have the exaggerated claims, Mr Speaker, about this bill requiring a better standard of insulation. That is complete rubbish. There is nothing in this bill about the standard of insulation. All Section 6 says is that MB will be required to publish and prepare a standard. Now, I'm more than happy to have a debate about the insulation standards the government is proposing, because they make good sense. We are requiring all uninsulated rental housing to be done to the latest 2008 standard by July 2019. The debate is whether homes insulated under an older standard should be upgraded. This does not make economic sense. Those built after 1978 have insulation that reduces heat loss by 84% and those after 2001 by 87%. The cost of upgrading this insulation to the 2008 standard of 92% is not justified because the cost would exceed the benefits. The idea that you're going to have tens of thousands of children not going to hospital because of a few percentage reduction in terms of insulation and heat loss does not withstand scrutiny. It is true that in setting these standards, the government has been influenced by robust cost-benefit analysis. This is important because every cost that we impose on the rental sector is ultimately passed on in rents. Now, insulating an uninsulated property provides $1.80 of benefit for every dollar that is spent and makes good sense. But to gain a few percentage points of extra insulation by requiring those properties that are insulated but not right up to those last few percentage points of the current standard actually imposes more costs on the very families than we're trying to help than there are benefits. We are requiring in our approach that where insulation is no longer in a reasonable state of repair, that it has to be upgraded, and we're also requiring that all tenancy agreements disclose the level of insulation so that over time tenants are better aware and we get those upgrades. Now, the second issue that needs scrutiny of this bill is the claim that there is currently no requirement for heating, for ventilatage, for drainage and draft stopping. That is false. The existing regulations provide for all of these. Let me directly quote from the housing regulations. Clause 6, and I read it. Every room intended for living shall have a fireplace or appropriate form of heating. Clause 14, every house shall have an efficient drainage, shall be free of dampness. It shall have a proper sanitation system. On ventilation, Clause 11 requires every room shall be provided with adequate lighting and ventilation. These are the existing regulations. It is just garbage for Labor to claim these issues in this bill are not addressed in the current law. The only issue not covered in the current regulations but proposed in Mr Little's bill is the proposal requiring landlords have to meet a minimum indoor temperature. Now, that is impractical and stupid. A landlord cannot reasonably be expected to maintain a minimum temperature when the tenant controls when the heater is turned on and off, whether wood is put on the fire, whether curtains, or as my member interjects, whether windows are opened or closed. Now, the government isn't saying there's not a problem over slum properties that are not fit for renting. But what we are saying is that the issue is the enforcement, not the standards. That's why the government's bill focuses on strengthening enforcement by giving MB, for the first time, the proper powers to be able to prosecute some landlords directly. This is an important change, not covered in this Labor bill, that will actually make far more practical difference to the actual issue of standards and slum properties that concern this House. So my points about this bill is it is a fake. It does not guarantee healthy homes. It will actually take longer to insulate homes than the government's approach. It does not set any standard for insulation, and claims in that respect are just puffery. The government will oppose this bill. I'll actually welcome the fact that it goes to Select Committee, because I tell you, when it comes under Select Committee scrutiny, it'll be shown for the fraud that it is and will become an embarrassment for the Leader of the Opposition. This bill is a very poor substitute for the government's detailed and practical measures that will do a far better job of making our rental properties warmer, drier and safer.
Thank you.